G'day Reddit. This is Michael Moore. He's former Director General of the World Trade Organisation, and he's kindly agreed to take some questions from us. We've had over 300 questions submitted, which is absolutely huge. Together we've gotten together and chosen a specific set of them that we're going to have, and we're going to spend some time to answer these questions. So thank you very much, Mike.
No problem.
So Mike, thank you very much for answering questions on behalf of Reddit. Everyone seems to be very honoured that you're going to take questions from us. The first thing I'd like to know is there seems to be a bit of confusion about exactly what is globalisation, and a bit of confusion about free trade and that sort of thing. So are you able to define it for us?
I'll try. It took me 4 years to write this book, Saving Globalisation. Globalisation is not a policy. It's not a sort of Wall Street, Gnomes of Zurich thing. It's a process, and it's been going on ever since man stood up and looked over the horizon. People have always traded and moved and shifted. That's what history is about. It's accelerated recently given technology, given the way the world has moved, but it's all, you know, it can be slowed, it can't be stopped any more than you can stop people thinking. This is the human spirit. It was stopped in its tracks in August 1940 with the First World War. We didn't have passports before then. It was slowed with the fascist and Marxist detours. Now it's accelerating yet again, as it has done through our history. Sometimes it's been by violence and imperialism, but now we're in a rules-based system. In the main, it's been done peacefully. In China and India reintegrating into the world economy, their share of trade is about where it was 300 or 400 years ago. So this is not new. It's a process. It's not about someone deciding they're going to thrust this down people's throats.
So if you were going to teach a primary school student what is globalisation, can you explain that to...
It's the exchange of goods and services and ideas internationally, across borders. It's trade, it's information, it's food, it's textiles, it's books, it's videos, communications. It's an ability to communicate, to sell, to buy from any source you want, your free decision. And of course it's imperfect. I mean, it's very imperfect.
So how is it different from how things have been run in the past over the last...
I think what's different now is that after the war, when the fascist detour came and we had the Second World War, and fascism and Marxism were made stronger because of the collapse of the global economy and the Great Depression. The Great Depression was deglobalisation. That's what a recession or depression is. It's when trade stops and people are thrown out of work because trade stopped, businesses slowed down, 30% unemployment in the United States, bigger in Germany, up came fascism. And the Great Depression was made more lethal, more prolonged, because the reaction of governments to the recession was to stop trade, competitive devaluations, the world fell apart. So our father's generation, during the war, before it finished, thought we have to construct a new world where this doesn't happen. So they had the United Nations to handle political issues, the World Bank to handle finance issues for poor countries, the International Monetary Fund to give policy advice and liquidity at certain times, and the World Trade Organisation to handle transparent, predictable rules of trade, so that people could just not turn off the tap and beg of thy neighbour and throw everyone out of work. And in the main, that system is held. It is imperfect. There are exceptions, because any agreement is only yesterday's compromise, and that's why we keep trying to reform it, to widen new trade rounds, and to bring in products that are of benefit to countries that were not at the front table when the system was established. And some say, globalisation means the death of the nation state. Well, 2/3 of the countries at the United Nations did not exist in 1945. There's more countries now than ever, more flags than ever. probably more currencies too.
So do you think that the way the world is equipped with the WTO, with the UN, is this a fantastic way to evolve into as the world progresses?
I think it's a process, and we keep improving it. We're human, we make mistakes, and it is not fairly balanced in terms of trade. Agricultural countries, Africa and the Latins, are chopped out because when the agreements were first drawn, the issue was food security around the world. Everyone thought we should grow our own food, to hell with the Latins, to hell with Africa. And you can understand that impulse when Europe and Japan were destroyed and we were reconstructing their economies. This does great violence to the economies of poor countries. And obviously China wasn't even a member of the United Nations in 1945 and only joined the World Trade Organization in my days. Here's what the World Trade Organization does. It's a series of international agreements. You negotiate an agreement. Each parliament has to ratify it or base it on their law, right? So our parliament of Wellington ratifies it or give a new political system, but it has to be answerable to law. So it's pretty democratic, I would have thought. Then when there's a dispute between countries as to interpretation or if someone's breaking the rules, unique in the international architecture is a binding disputes mechanism. That is, New Zealand says to the United States, you're not treating our land right, this is not within the spirit of the agreements. We take the United States to the binding dispute system. It ruled in favour of New Zealand in this case, and we win. It takes too long, it's imperfect, but nowhere else do great and modest countries sit down and accept the outcome of independent panels and arbitration. That doesn't exist in the UN system. It'd be wonderful if it did. Imagine if you sat down in the Middle East and said, we're going to reach a decision here, you blokes on either side will be bound to the outcome. So far from rubbishing the WTO, I think its system could be duplicated in other areas. I mean, what does the ILO, the World Health Organization, or these other guys, or the World Environmental Agency do? They offer advice, they have well-meaning resolutions, and they're good people, but it's not enforced in law. Anyhow, that's what the book's about.